When I was at school, I would sometimes do silly things, not really difficult, not really stupid things, not really bad things, but just some silly stuff. And my teacher would say to me, "Chris, why did you do that?" And I would say, "Well, because so-and-so told me to do it." And then they would respond to me in, I think, the same. I'm sure, like, who are the teachers? Give me a hand up if you're a teacher. I'm sure you are told, like, some point in your training, you have this session and they tell you, this is what you say when somebody does something because somebody told them to do something. What is it that you say? Jump in a fire? You can say you're an accountant or like work in finance. If so-and-so, there you go, the computer is sort of lagging a little bit this morning. If so-and-so told you to jump off a cliff, would you? Has anybody had that said to them? Who's had that said to them? Only 3 people, a few people. Who said it? To teachers. Is there any teachers in the room who've never said this? No, there's not. Oh, well, you're a math teacher, so there you go. You're too cool. If so-and-so told you to jump off a cliff, would you? And I would think, what a stupid thing to say. It's one thing to attach the Bunsen burner to the water tap so you can shoot a jet of water across the classroom. It's a completely different thing to jump off a cliff. Believe it or not, there is a limit to my stupidity. We are in week 2 of guardrails. We started this last week. You can catch up on our YouTube page if you missed it, or on the Hub. Just go to finchampstead.com/the Hub, click on Sunday's Talk, and you can watch back or listen back to last week's message. And the whole thing about guardrails is guardrails are those things that you see on the road, but you don't pay much attention to a guardrail because nobody needs a guardrail until you need a guardrail. And we put them in dangerous areas. We put them there to keep us safe, and they're there to help us not stray. This really struggling this morning. Help us not stray into off-limit areas. So you put them on bends, you put them on bridges, you put them down the central reservations to stop you drifting into oncoming traffic. And guardrails do 2 things. They direct and they protect. They show us where we should go and they show us where we shouldn't go. And they protect us from actually going into those areas that are off-limits that would cause damage. And when you think about a guardrail, there's a dangerous area. Where do you put the guardrail? Do you put it after the dangerous bend? Do you put it in the middle of the dangerous bend? Or do you put it before the dangerous bend? Of course, you pull it before the dangerous bend. You pull it in the safety zone. Do you feel like the TV this morning? Is anybody else associating with that? You put it in the safety zone just before the danger zone. And you might be thinking, well, Chris, I know that, if I come to a road safety seminar. That's not what we're talking about this morning. The whole point of what we're talking about is roads are not the only place in life where we need guardrails. We actually need guardrails in life as well, and just other aspects of our life. And actually, when we establish guardrails in life, when we put things in place to stop us drifting into off-limit areas, to stop us going into those places which we know we shouldn't go, it can actually help us. We can avoid future regret by putting guardrails in place now. And actually some of those things that as you look back over your life and you think, why did I say that? Why did I go there? Why did I buy that? Why did I do that? Why did I spend time with them? Why did I act in that way? Why did I react in that way? Why did I have that interaction? If you, and you're living with regret now because of that silly thing that you did in your past, if you'd put guardrails in place back then, that regret that you now have wouldn't be there. You wouldn't be carrying it because you could have avoided straying into that off-limit area. That's exactly what we're talking about throughout this series. And today, I want us to think about how can we establish guardrails for our relationships. I've got the timing right. You've got to click it like 3 seconds before you want it to move. How do we establish guardrails for our relationships? And, all of us need relationships. We all need people around us. Even the most introverted of us actually need to have people in our lives. We need to be surrounded by people. But the thing about our relationships is our relationships shape us. Our relationships form us. Our relationships mold us. They influence us. We are different because because of the people that we have in our lives. And there's this thing called the 5 people rule, which basically says that we become the average of the 5 people we spend most time with. So, people who think about this sort of stuff have come up with this and realized that we become the average of the 5 people that we spend most of the time with. So just think about that for the moment. Right now, you are being shaped by the people you spend time with. Right now, you're being influenced, you're being molded by those people that you spend time with. Your character is being shaped and in some way defined by those people you spend time with. Those choices that you make, the values that you have is being molded, is being shaped by those people that you spend time with. And what's more, your future is being influenced by that. Your career, your health is being impacted, is being shaped by the people you spend time with, whether you realize it or not, whether you like it or not, whether you want them to do that or not. The 5 people rule tells us that our relationships, the people that we spend most time with, actually, all of the relationships we have shape us and mold us in some way, but actually the people we spend most time with really impact us, and we're different because of them. Here's a couple of quotes about this. And Craig Rochelle says, "Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future." Andy Stanley says, "Your friends determine the quality and direction of life." Craig and Andy are pastors in churches and authors, and they talk a lot about relationships and friendships. And there's something there that's true, actually. Our friends impact us. Our friends sort of shape us and mold us. We are different because of our friendships, because of our relationships. And I wonder if you've ever looked back on a season of life and realized, I think I had the wrong people around me in that moment or in that place. Have you ever surrounded yourself with the wrong people, and actually it derailed everything, or it took you off track? You were heading in one direction, or you wanted to be about this or to do those sort of things. And because of those relationships, actually you were different. You weren't the you that you wanted to be. That maybe there's been some relationships in your life that have pulled you away from being that person that actually you want to be, that person that you feel you were created to be. Maybe there's people in your life that you've acted differently around. For whatever reason, you act differently around this person or these group of people than you do to those other group of people. That actually this is who you are, but when you're with them, something changes, something shifts in you, and you do things that you think, well, why am I doing that? Or you think things, or you say things. Your actions, your interactions, your reactions are different because of those people. Think about those significant moments in your life, those significant decisions that you've had to make in your life. Who was standing next to you? Who was whispering in your ear? Who was influencing you in those moments? And was that influence helpful or was it harmful? And actually, as you think about this next year and your future, what are those key decisions and those key moments that might be coming up for you this year or in your future? Actually, we tend to think about those things, but are we thinking about the people that we're surrounding ourselves with? Because those people will influence what we do and how we respond in those key moments of life. You see, relationships are like strong, invisible currents. They can carry us towards the best versions of ourselves, or they can carry us away. They can pull us in that right direction towards who we want to be and who we feel we're created to be, or they can pull us away from that. They can take us, carry us off to somewhere else, to a different destination, and actually change who we are. Relationships are like a powerful GPS for our future. The people we walk with determine the direction and destination of our life. That's fact. This is something that was true yesterday, it's something that's true today, and it's something that will be true tomorrow. Something that's always is. The power and the impact and the influence that our relationships have on us. So because of that, let's learn from some timeless wisdom to help us know how do we navigate this? How do we put some guardrails in place so that our relationships can be helpful for us and not actually hinder us from being the people that we were created to be. And so we're going to take a look at something that a guy called Solomon wrote. Now, Solomon was thought to have been one of the wisest people to ever live. Solomon was the son of David. You might remember David as a boy. He killed the giant Goliath, and David grew up to be a man, and he became king of Israel. He's thought of to be one of the greatest kings that Israel had, and his son Solomon succeeded him, and he was a very wise king. He was a wise ruler. He was a scholar. He was a poet. He was a philosopher, and he was full of wisdom. People would flock from all over the world to come and listen to Solomon and consult him and to benefit from his wisdom. And we have in the Bible, there's a book called Proverbs, which is a collection of some of these wise sayings. It's collections of some of this wisdom that Solomon has. And in Proverbs, Solomon says this: walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Let me read that again. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. And that sounds like good advice. Yeah, we probably should do something like that. The problem is sometimes we think, well, this is just advice, and think, yeah, that's good, and I could apply that. This is more than advice. This is more than a suggestion. This is a guardrail, and in fact, I would say that this is a divine guardrail. You see, the source of Solomon's wisdom wasn't all the books he read. It wasn't all the schools that he went to. It wasn't all the learning that he did, although that was an important part of that. The source of Solomon's wisdom was God. You see, Solomon had this encounter with God. The book of Kings, which sort of tells us some of the history of the kings of Israel, which you can find in the Old Testament, tells us about this encounter. It says this: at Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon during the night in a dream, and God said, ask for whatever you want me to give you. Now put yourself in Solomon's shoes. God appears to you in a dream, and he says, look, I want you to ask me for whatever it is you want me to give you. What do you ask for? How do you respond in that situation? What is it that you want? Chances are how you respond in that situation will probably be different to how Solomon responded. This is what Solomon said. He said, so give your servant, he said a bunch of other stuff, and at the end of it he says, so give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong, for who is able to govern this great people of yours? And I would love to think that if I was in Solomon's shoes and God appeared to me and said, Chris, ask me for whatever it is that you want me to give you, I would love to think that I would respond with something like this. But if I'm honest, it'd probably have something to do with golf, and get my handicap to zero, let me always hit a straight drive or never lose a golf ball again. It'd probably be like that. And, how do you think God responds to Solomon's request? Well, he's pleased with it. He says this, the Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for this. So God said to him, since you've asked for this and not for long life or wealth for yourself, which is probably something along the lines of what we would have asked for, nor you've asked for the death of your enemies, but for discernment in administering justice, I'll do what you've asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be. You see, Solomon asked for wisdom, and God says, that's a great thing to ask for. I'm going to give that to you. I'm going to give that to you in abundance. And actually, this other stuff, wealth and prosperity was added to him as well. His influence reached across the whole world at that time. So my point is, we should take notice of the things that Solomon said. This is more than just some good advice. This is divine wisdom. So let's take a look at it again. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. And this is sort of Solomon's version of the 5 people rule. Actually, that's the wrong way around. The 5 people rule is built upon what Solomon is saying here. And what Solomon's telling us is something that we know to be true because we've experienced it in our own lives, is every single relationship actually has that ability to bring us closer to the best version of ourselves, or it has the power to pull us away from it. It has the power to drag us away from who we feel we're created to be and our best version of ourselves. Every single relationship you have is either adding value to you or it's extracting value from you. There are no neutral relationships. And, sometimes people might tip into one area and back into the other ones because we're all human and we're all infallible. And actually, we're thinking about that in relation to the relationships that people have with us and the influence that they have with us. But also, this is true of you to other people. You can either be somebody that adds value to somebody, or you can be somebody that detracts value from them. Who do you want to be? Do you want to be somebody that feeds into people and helps people and brings out the best in them, or do you want to be somebody who pulls people away from whom they're created to be, who actually brings out the worst in people? And in this verse, there's a promise and there's a prediction in the verse. The prediction is our relationships determine what happens to us in the future. I've said this over and over again already this morning. Our relationships determine what happens to us in the future. And some of us might struggle with this because you might want to say, well, that's great, Chris, but surely God determines what happens to me in my future. And to that, I want to be able to say, yeah, a big amen and a big yes. But the reality is that in some way, God's ability to influence and shape our future is impacted by the people we surround ourselves with. And it might not necessarily be God's ability to do that, but it's our ability to hear from God and to respond from God. And actually those relationships can just be added noise that makes it more difficult for us to discern what is it that God is saying to us? Where is it that God is leading us? And some relationships actually help us tune in to God's frequency and actually be on a path with him and understand who he is and his will for our lives. We talked about that a bit last week. But some relationships actually add noise and they detune us. They desensitize us from God, and it makes it difficult for us to hear. And the promise is wisdom is contagious. It spreads. Walk with the wise and you'll become wise. If you surround yourself with wise people, you will become wise. But so too does foolishness. If you surround yourself with fools, you'll become foolish as well. So, if we surround ourselves with wise people, we become wise. So here's the really important question that we need to ask ourselves. Who am I walking with? Solomon says, walk with the wise and you'll become wise. So who are you walking with? Right now, who are you surrounding yourself on this journey of life? And I want us to do like a quick mental relationship audit. And we're going to look at some things that can help us understand, well, are the people that I'm surrounding myself with people who are going to add value and help me on this journey of life? Or they're going to be people who are going to pull me away from it. So I want you to think about those people, maybe some people in that top 5, the people you spend most of your time with, the people that you think, actually, they really impact me or they really influence me. Picture them in your head. And I'm going to give you some things to think about so you can sort of stay on the road so that these relationships don't pull you off and you end up in a ditch. This is how we walk with the wise. Have you got somebody in your head? Have you got a relationship? Anybody need more time? No, I'm looking for a response. Anybody there? No, it's because the bright lights, everyone's gone off for coffee, haven't I? I'm just standing here talking to an empty room. So picture somebody in your head. Let's think about these things in relation to those relationships. First up is the emotional climate that you have in that relationship. When you walk away from this person, do you feel more energized? Do you feel more alive? Or do you feel drained? Do they helpfully make you feel good? Or do you feel bad? Are they a radiator? Do they radiate into you? Or are they a drain? Do they suck life away from you? Does this person lift your spirit? Or do they constantly leave you feeling exhausted and tired? The emotional climate is really important. The next thing is personal growth. Are you a better version of yourself because of this relationship? Is this person helping bring out the good in you? Or are they doing the opposite? Does this person challenge you to keep going, to keep growing? Or do they sort of help you stay comfortable and stay stagnant or even decline? What about values alignment? Are your values aligned with their values? But actually, as you think about them, the values that they may profess to have, are they supported in actually what they think and what they say and what they do? Do their actions reflect the values that they claim to have? And those values, are they aligned with the values that you want to have for your life? And would you be happy to follow the path that this person is currently walking? If you think about, who they are and in relation to their values and how they respond and how they act, and think, okay, this is the trajectory that they're on, would I be happy to walk that trajectory with them and end up in that? That links us to this fourth one, that is that future trajectory. If I continued walking this path with this person, where am I going to end up? How is this going to impact me and influence me? Are they pushing me towards my dreams, or are they pulling me away from my potential? Are they helping bring out the best in me, or are they actually bringing out the worst in me? Can I see my future self thanking me for maintaining this relationship? I mean, that's a really sobering question. Can I see my future self, if I fast forward 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is, can I see my future self thanking me for maintaining this relationship, or maintaining the level of influence that this person has over me? And then the fifth area is spiritual impact. Are they drawing me closer to God? Are they inspiring me to be more like Jesus, or the opposite? Does this person respect and support my spiritual growth? You can still have key relationships with people who might not actually share those same values with you, might not have the same faith that you have. If you're someone who's curious about faith and thinking, actually, I want to discover a little bit more whether this Jesus thing is for me and is relevant to my life, does this relationship that I'm thinking about, is that going to support that? Whatever they think or don't think about faith, but are they going to be somebody who helps me on this journey, or are they going to be somebody who hinders me on these journeys? So if you think about these things in relationship to those key relationships, so the emotional climate, the personal growth, the values alignment, the future trajectory, the spiritual impact, are there any red flags? Are there any warning signs? Is there any bells going off saying, actually, there's something here that this relationship is not helping me be the person that I feel that I'm created to be? This relationship isn't, pushing me in the right direction. It's pulling me away from where I want to end up. If that's true, then perhaps you need to put some intentional change in place. Perhaps you need to think about, well, what is the extent of the influence that I allow this person to have on my life? I'm not talking about ditching people at all. I'm just thinking about, how do we limit the impact that this relationship can have? Because our friendships, our relationships determine the direction and destination of our life. This is so crucial. But with that in mind, let's think about this question that comes up in relation to that. What about the people that I can't avoid? It'd be great if I could just pick. Christmas is a wonderful time. Wouldn't it be great if you could spend Christmas with the people that you want to spend Christmas with, instead of maybe I shouldn't have said that. No, I love my family. It's great. But sometimes there's people in life that you can't avoid. It might be a colleague, it might be a family member, it might be somebody at school or whatever it is. That there are people that are there that you're on this journey with, whether it's just for this period of time. You can't avoid them. They still have an impact on you. What do we do in those situations? Well, first up, we're not talking about avoiding anyone at all. We're thinking about proximity and power. We're thinking about the amount of proximity, or the amount of power, the amount of influence that we give to these people to allow them to shape us and to mold us. We're thinking about, what's the extent of that power that actually in that place and in that person, how much am I going to give over to them so that they can influence me and inform me and whisper in my ear. And that's the stuff that we're thinking about. And of course, there's relationships that we can't avoid, that they're just there. But here's something that we can do. You can't always choose who you're around, but you can always choose how you engage. You can't always choose who you are around, but you can always choose how you engage in that relationship or in that situation. So I want to give you 3 helpful ways I think you can establish guardrails in these sort of relationships to help you stay on the road and not end up in a relational ditch. The first one is boundary setting. And this is all about limiting the amount of emotional investment that we put into the relationship. And we do that by being really clear with ourselves, at least, if not with them, about what is the limit limit or the extent of this relationship. Yeah, so why is there the connection? Why do I have to spend time with this person, recognizing that actually they're not adding value to me in this aspect of life? So I need to sort of do some damage limitation, thinking, okay, well, this is the limit of the influence. This is the limit of the boundaries of where our relationship is. And when we're clear with ourselves about it, actually it helps us sort of limit that damage and the extent of that relationship. And then it helps us stick to it. This is the relationship and these are the boundaries that I'm going to put in place. The next one is all about intentional influence. So maybe there's a relationship and somebody is influencing you in the wrong direction. That you're not the best version of yourself when you're around them. You can flip that on its head. You can become the influencer. It's not easy, but you can do that. You can actually model your key values, those things that are really important to you. You can put them front and center and actually use them to become the influencer in the relationship rather than being influenced by them. But also, intentional influencers are thinking about who are the other people that I'm going to surround myself with. So if I know I'm in this relationship and they drain me or they pull me in the wrong direction, who are the other people that I'm surrounding myself with that are going to pour into me, that are going to give life to me, that are going to help me stay on track? Who are the people that are going to do the opposite of what this person's doing? And then the third thing is spiritual defense. If you're a Jesus follower, you can ask God to help you in this. You can ask God for wisdom to know how to act and how to react, how to respond in certain situations. So when we sort of put boundaries in place, when we're intentional about the amount of influence that we allow them to have, but also the influence that we want to have and the influence that other people put in place. And when we actually look to God to support us, to protect us, to guide us, to give us wisdom, this sort of creates these guardrails for those relationships that help us be the people that we want to be. And it minimizes the damage that relationship can have and pulling us away from where we think we can go. And I know as you're sitting there, you might be thinking, well, Chris, that sounds great, but relationships are not quite like that. It seems very clinical, and relationships aren't clinical. They're mixed and messy. They don't follow a set plan and all those things. Yeah, of course, that's exactly right. But the point is, our relationships are too important to just leave to chance. The power and the impact that the people we surround ourselves with have on us are too important just to drift through life, because when we do that, we drift into oncoming traffic. We stray into off-limit areas before we even realize it. And actually, these guardrails, putting them in place, actually serves as a warning when we realize, no, actually, I'm drifting into uncharted territory. I'm drifting into a place which I know I shouldn't go, even though I might want to go there in that moment. And it serves as a warning sign for us to help us stay on track. Our relationships are too important to leave to chance. That's why it's worth putting guardrails in place. So we thought about that. We thought about those 5 people that we spend most time with. We thought about people who maybe we can't avoid or maybe dragging us in the wrong direction. Who are the people in your life that are cheering you on? Who are the people in your life who are actively bringing out the best in you? Where are those places where you're surrounded by people who you know are going to add value to you, are going to encourage you, are going to support you, who are going to help you be the person you're created to be? For me, one of those people is a guy called Paul. Let me introduce you to Paul. I've known Paul since I was 21, so it's about 5 years or so, maybe a little bit more. Paul spoke at our wedding. I've walked with Paul for 27 years. I feel really old in saying that. And Paul, he's my mentor. He's a wise person. Paul is somebody who, to me, reflects the character of Jesus. And so Paul's my mentor. I went to work for an organization called Youth for Christ when I was 21, and Paul was a trustee of that organization. And he sort of supported me and encouraged me and sort of fed into me. He used to be a teacher, and then he worked in Christian organisations, and now he spends his life full-time as a mentor, mentoring people just around the UK. And so I'm one of those people. And so I meet up with Paul regularly, about 4 times a year, maybe a few times more. And he's just somebody that I can be really real with because I've been on this journey with him for 27 years. He knows me. He knows when I'm lying. So he can ask me, I've given Paul complete access to any aspect of my life and say, Paul, you can ask me anything, and I will try and be as honest as I possibly can to you. And so Paul, he does ask me anything. Sometimes he'll say, Chris, can I see your search history on your computer? And I'm like, yeah, you have access to that. And whatever it is, Paul can speak into that. But if I'm trying to hide something, he knows those signs because he knows me so well, and he can gently, Chris, are you being honest with yourself there? Are you being honest with me there? And he's just one of those wise people that really brings out the best in me, or helps me stay on the path. And so Paul is always at the end of a phone or a text if I'm going through something, or I just need some advice or some wisdom, or just somebody to pray for me. Paul is somebody who I can just fire a text off to or pick up the phone and speak to. And I know he's always there. He'll always listen. He'll always encourage me, and he'll always give me his wisdom, and he won't hold back, even if it's something that I need to hear but don't want to hear. Have you ever noticed that? Sometimes in life, the things we need to hear the most are the things we want to hear the least. Paul said that to me a few times, and I'm thinking, oh, ouch, that helps. And trying and put that in place. And whenever I meet up with Paul, I always leave feeling encouraged. I always leave feeling inspired. I always leave feeling I can do this, whatever it is, whatever this is. I never leave those times with Paul feeling drained or thinking, what's the point? Or that was a waste of time. He adds value to my life. And the whole thing about this relationship is that's not happened by accident. This is an intentional commitment that we've made, and that Paul's made to me, and that I've made to Paul over those years, to actually be open and honest, to actually carve out time so that we can spend time with one another, so that we can connect with one another. It takes intentionality for me to actually choose to sit under Paul and actually give him authority into my life, and actually give him access to any aspect of my life, and to say, Paul, you can ask anything of me and I'll be as honest as I possibly can. And these sort of relationships don't just happen by chance. They take time, they take investment, they take commitment. But I'm so thankful for people like Paul, who I've been on this journey with, because, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure Paul has helped me avoid regret. I'm sure Paul has helped me in moments not make silly decisions that maybe I would have made if it wasn't for that wisdom and walking with the wise that I had there. And I just don't know of those things, but I'm sure there's many future regrets that Paul has helped me avoid it because of that relationship. So that's me and Paul. But what about you? Who are you walking with? Who's your Paul or Pauls? Who are the people in your life that are doing something similar to what Paul is doing for me? Who are the people, who am I Paul to? Who are the people that I'm actually thinking, well, how can I help you, and how can I pour into you? How can I support you and help bring out the best in you? It's so important. And if you're sitting there thinking, you've done those relationship audit and you're thinking about those 5 people you spend most of your time with, if one of them, now actually Paul isn't somebody I spend most of my time with, it's not always possible, but actually if you've not got people like this in your life, that should be a warning flag. If the people that you're surrounded with are actually generally taking away from you, they're not helping you be the best version of yourself, you need to do something about that, because your friendships determine the direction and destination of your life. If you are surrounded by people who are pulling away from your values and who you want to be, you will drive your relational car into a ditch. Just fact, it's just what happens. So how do you be intentional about ensuring that you surround yourself with the right people? Shanique earlier just told us a bit about the small groups that we have at FBC. We often say life is better connected. Why do we say that? Well, because life is better connected. Another phrase we like to say around here is you can't grow spiritually unless you're connected relationally. So we run a whole bunch of small groups to help people actually connect relationally relationally in order to grow in their faith of Jesus. We're going to get the band up on stage and just reflect on that. If you're somebody who's not in a small group, I really encourage you to check out the hub. Go to finchampstead.com/the hub, or in the cafe area, and you can speak to a member of the team. And you can find out the groups that we've got spaces for and actually start to invest in intentional community, because small groups are about what we're talking about. They're about actually helping us walk with the wise. They're about having people around us who can encourage us and support us, who can pray for us, who can just carry us when we go through those difficult times, or laugh with us and celebrate with us in the good times. But they're also a place where we can do that for other people. They're a place that helps us be intentional about the influence we have on other people to help bring out the best in them. The whole thing we're talking about this morning is this: walk with the wise and become wise, because a companion of fools suffers harm. So who are you walking with? Who are the wise people in your life that are helping you stay on track? And where are those relationships that maybe you need to do some damage limitation? Think, actually, I need to put some boundaries in place. I need to put some guardrails in place, because I'm not the me that I want to be when I'm around them. They're not bringing out the best in me. And one of the best ways you can do that is by surrounding yourself more and more with people who will cheer you on, who will celebrate you, who will help you be the you that you were created to be. Maybe you need to be more intentional about some of those relationships. Why don't we stand to our feet and let me pray for us. Father God, I thank you so much for this timeless wisdom that thousands of years old, but is still true today. And you know, the brightest minds in our time are still standing on this wisdom that you gave to Solomon. And I pray that you'd help us stand on this wisdom, that you'd help us embrace the truth of this and be intentional about who we're walking with. Let's be honest with ourselves, Lord, and help us put things in place so that we surround ourselves with the right people, so that we end up in the right place doing the right things. I pray that you'd put people in our path. You'd help us create time and priority for group life or relationships, intentional community, so that we can be encouraged, but also so that we can do this for other people. Lord, help us be wise people for the people you've placed in our path, that we can add value to them as well. Help us be people that points people to Jesus, doesn't drag them away from him. Bless us, Lord, I pray. Amen.